What's happening, cat daddies and foxy mamas? It's the Blaxploitation fanatic back with another episode of the Blaxploitation Appreciation Podcast, where we celebrate Blaxploitation culture from music to movies to books and everything in between. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. And the movie for this week is titled Bone, and it was actually Bone, A Bad Day in Beverly Hills. Now, it's kind of hard with this one to call it Blaxploitation when only one person in the film was a black person. But considering that particular black person, Yaphet Kotto, is larger than life, I guess you could call it a Blaxploitation film, right? And Yaphet Kotto was the only black person, but really it was only like maybe 4 to 5 primary characters in this film all together anyway. So again, he makes up for the lack of black characters and actors in the movie. So this one came out in 1972 on Larco Productions. It was directed, written, and produced by Larry Cohen, which you may know from doing the Blaxploitation classics of Black Caesar and its sequel, Hell Up in Harlem. In a nutshell, what this one is about is black man comes to rob a white couple in Beverly Hills, thus the title Bone, A Bad Day in Beverly Hills. And I think it was also packaged under or put out under a title of Beverly Hills Nightmare or something like that, in addition to some other titles that we'll talk about shortly. So in this particular one, you got, as I said, the always great Yaphet Kotto playing the title character Bone, and I'll give you more info about him. But Yaphet Kotto, man, he pretty much does an excellent job in every single thing he's in, Blaxploitation or not. You know him from Across 110th Street. He played the pimp Blue in Truck Turner. And then I remember him from when I was little. He played Idi Amin, the African dictator, in a TV movie when I was little. So, but Yaphet Kotto, always tight, man. Then you also had Joyce Van Patten and Andrew Duggan playing a married couple named Bill and Bernadette. And then you had Jeannie Berlin playing a character titled The Girl. And those were kind of like the 4 main characters in this film. Now, before I give you an overview of it, just to tell you a little bit about it, again, it is, some people consider it Blaxploitation, some don't. This is a dark comedy with flashbacks and fantasy sequences throughout. Kind of, you can really see Larry Cohen starting to hone his chops with this particular movie, with some of the things he would do later on, like some of the flashback sequences and fantasy sequences we saw in Hell Up in Harlem and some of his later, Black Caesar, well, and Hell Up in Harlem and some of his later movies as well. But it is definitely a dark comedy with a little bit of a social aspect or social twist to it. One of the things that in a few interviews Larry Cohen mentioned, that the theme of this movie, it deals with problems we still face today in America. The film was revolutionary because it cuts to the heart of racial prejudice. And in another interview he did with Josiah Howard, who that's the Blaxploitation essential reference guide that I've referenced in prior episodes, is he said in an interview with Josiah that he felt the movie was kind of well ahead of its time. And I would agree. Considering this came out in 1972, and when I look at it, I can imagine back then what people thought about it. It was inappropriately marketed as Blaxploitation action, and thus I think, because it was critically acclaimed, it didn't really do well with audiences. And it was because it was marketed as a Blaxploitation action film when really it's a comedy. And so I think because of that, and that it didn't do well, it was repackaged under some other names. Like they did this, I don't know if they were trying to like make it a horror film or promote it as a horror film, but they had this title, Dial Rat for Terror. And then the other one they had is Housewife with Jeannie Berlin. And this is where they like kind of tried to capitalize on Jeannie Berlin's popularity, like Jeannie will steal your heart. And her role was, it was short, it was big because again, it's only four people that really make up the movie, but it was short. So kind of like this is a misleading poster as well, because you look at this and think this was about Jeannie Berlin, and like I said, not really. Okay, but overall, a good movie. And if I had to break it down to you, give you an overview. So what happens is Yaphet Kotto, he shows up, he's a burglar, he shows up to rob this white couple, Bill and Bernadette, played by Joyce Van Patten and Andrew Duggan. Now, as he's tearing up their house, because he's like, I want some bread, he finds out that basically they are living a facade. They have a bunch of bills, they're head over heels in debt. And so in doing this, let me show you the scene when he finds out that they're basically broken, don't have any money, or when he thinks they're hiding out on them. So let's take a look at this one real quick.
Now look, mother, you live in a big house, you make big money, and you got big bread, and now I want you to tell me where it is. Do you hear me? Tell me where it is.
All right. So anyway, when he finds out that they're broke, he's like gets frustrated, but then he discovers that Bill has this hidden bank account which he's hidden from his wife. So now Bill and Bernadette get into it because he's hiding money from her, but Bone interrupts and he sends Bill to get the money. Basically says, "Hey, you go clear this bank account out, bring me the money, or else I'm going to rape and kill your wife." Now, while he's out getting the money at the bank, he meets the girl, this chick, and that's who Jeannie Berlin is. And he starts hanging out with her. So he just makes start hanging out with her. And so back at the house, while Bone and Bernadette are waiting for Bill, Bernadette gets drunk because she's frazzled that this big black man is here. It's gonna rape her if her husband doesn't show up. And so she gets drunk, and then the time comes. So Bone had told Bill, "Be back by 3:30. I'm going to rape and slash your wife's throat." So the time comes, and he goes to, fulfill on what he said he would do to Bernadette. But while this is happening, she starts to give in. And so while she gives in, Bone loses interest because I guess he can't really get into the lady unless she's fighting back. All right. So now they're both frustrated because Bill's not showing up. And, Bernadette winds up seducing Bone because he wouldn't go through with what he said he was going to do. So she winds up seducing Bone while Bill is cavorting with the girl. So with Jeannie Berlin, he hops in the sack with her. So while all of this is going on, they start to realize that, Bill ain't coming back. He did clear out that bank account and he's not coming back. So then Bone and Bernadette decide to team up. And, because Bill was going to leave her to get killed. So Bone and Bernadette decide to team up because they find an insurance policy that he has. So they say, "Hey, we're going to take Bill out." They catch him. So they track him down. And then he tries to negotiate with them and saying, "Hey, I'll give you the money and all this and that." But, they're not with it. So Bernadette takes out all her pent up rage on it, kills Bill. And basically at the end, it goes off with like this really weird rant. And she's not breaking the fourth wall talking to the audience, but it's this weird rant. And Bone mysteriously has disappeared, like he's nowhere around. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it was like kind of abstract in a sense in how Larry Cohen shot and put it together. But overall, again, and once you recognize it is not a typical blaxploitation action movie, it's a dark comedy. It's a very enjoyable movie. And there's a scene where when Bone and Bernadette have some dialogue around just why he's doing what he is, his take on racism, the social aspect of it, and all of that ties into why he is the way he is. It's a deep conversation, and you all know I usually am like, "Hey, I just like to watch my blaxploitation movies for the campiness and all that good stuff." But this one, the conversation that they have, it's a longer scene. I'm gonna just play a snippet of it, but it's very powerful. So let me just play a snippet of it, and then I definitely encourage you to check out the movie, and you can get a sense of the full scene because it's more like what I am about to show you. So let's go ahead and peep that out.
I had it all worked out. I had the nigga mystique. I talk nigga talk, you know. I'd walk nigga walk. I had it made. Then they changed it.
And so I don't know if you can get a sense for just that little snippet, how powerful that is, but imagine like an entire scene uh, with him kind of delivering that type of dialogue. So it's really powerful. Overall, man, I mean, most of the movies that I'm going to do on this show, I highly recommend, but this is another one that, not just saying it to be saying it. I do highly recommend checking it out because it has some funny stuff in there too. And so I think you'll really enjoy this one. All right. So Bone, Yaphet Kotto, go check it out. Hey, what's up, cat daddies? Want to give a shout out to all the big fellas out there to let you know if you're looking for some gear like sneakers, hoodies, tees, geared around blaxploitation and hip hop, check out my man Vantana. You can check out his eBay store over at Vantana 11, or you can scan that little QR code right there, and that'll take you to the shop. If you're not a big dude like me, then you might be interested in some of his vinyl or CDs or cassettes. Again, books and CDs as well. He's got stuff in the blaxploitation genre and in the hip hop vein. So go ahead and check him out. Again, that's eBay store Vantana 11, or you could just scan the QR code right there. Peace. All right. So then for this week that we're going to talk about is our book is, what is our book? Our book this week is Black Streets of Oakland. A 1973 novel from Holloway House. It's pitched as being the author being Kelly Eagle telling the story to Leo Gill. Now, I don't think I've done a Leo Gill book on the show yet, but Leo Gill was, depending on who you talk to, he was considered one of either the greatest pulp writers, that existed, or one of the all-time biggest hacks there is. He did quite a few of these as told to Leo Gill books where he was supposedly telling the story of, in those cases, it's a female that's, has gone through some type of hard times. And so for me, as I read this, I was bouncing back and forth between this because it is supposedly a true story, and I'm pretty gullible. So I went into it thinking, oh, wow, this is a story of, and it's about a former street girl, former call girl, street girl, hooker, whatever you want to say, and who basically got out of the game, but still, always had connection and ties to her pimp. But she got out of the game because she married supposedly this famous Black actor who was technically, the marriage was just a ruse. He was, I guess, a homosexual and needed to be married to kind of keep his reputation intact. And so that's the story in the book in and of itself. And the reason I kind of am in the camp of Leo Guild is a hack is because, as I was reading this, I was trying to figure out who it is. And mentioned that names were changed, but even with names changed, some internet sleuthing, good research should help identify people involved if it was true. And so trying to figure out, okay, during that time, early or late 60s, early 70s, famous Black actor, married to a white girl, kind of may have had homosexual tendencies, because in it, when she tells the story, she talks about, them going out in public together so he could be seen, but him having a lover who she knew about, but always kept it undercover. So just all of that, I'm like, by now, and 50 years later or so, if this were true, we would have been able to know who this was. So to me, that's why I say Guild is a hack, because to pitch this off or to push this off as saying it's a true story. It just didn't sit well with me. I would have been bad. I mean, it would have been better off to me if he would have just said, "Hey, this story is fiction." I would have enjoyed it more because knowing that, it wasn't true. But to kind of do that, and like I said, Leo Gill was known for doing that, so that's why I'm kind of like I'm in the he's a hack category. Even though some of this, I've read a couple of his books, and they make for good reading, but just still, just come clean, man. All right. So, but if you can get a hold of it, let me see. I think that's the original cover. Yeah, I think that's cover 3. I didn't have cover 2, but this is the version that I have. So, yep. If you didn't check it out, I most of the Blaxploitation paperbacks, I say, hey, make sure you read it or go find it, check it out. This one, if you didn't, no harm, no foul. All right. But if you want to see more like this, then be sure to check out Blaxploitationpaperbacks.com. All right. So that leads us to the music for this week. And music for this week it isn't a Blaxploitation soundtrack or album or anything per se, but again, just appreciating music that represents that time frame and the culture. This is the Tower of Power, the self-titled Tower of Power album. Tower of Power was a funk group out of Oakland, and you may know them most for featuring for several years. Their lead singer was Lenny Williams, who you may know from basically oh 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 oh. That's anybody doing that, they need to give homage to Lenny Williams. So R. Kelly, Aaron Hall, a lot of guys kind of copied his style a little bit. But Lenny Williams is the true OG in that sense. And he leads up this particular album for Tower of Power. Great songs, funky songs on it, which you may know, the two that you may know mostly is What Is Hip and So Very Hard to Go. But they have This Time It's Real is a good one. Get Your Feet Back on the Ground. And then there's one, I don't have snippets, unfortunately, this episode, but they have one that it's called Soul Vaccination. And it sounds like it could be from a Blaxploitation movie. It has that vibe. So this is definitely one that, that's there was a bunch of dudes in that group. Man, what's that right now? It's 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 10 on this album. And they had a lot of personnel changes over the years, but this is one of their best albums. And they've had tons, but this is one of the best. And then Back to Oakland, the one that came after this, is a really good album as well. So you get a chance, go peep that out. So as we start to wind this thing down, our Blaxploit Me entry for this week. So our Blaxploit Me entry is one of our viewers did a book cover. Now, I'm going to presume that I don't know if this viewer is Norman Calloway or if he made up the name Norman Calloway, or if this is him or whatever. But this is a book cover someone did called On the Flip Side. Pretty cool. Says a Norman Calloway thriller down there. Got the picture. So, awesome, man. And I love this because the way the AI did it is it actually makes it look like a vintage book cover with the crinkles and the whole nine. Pretty sweet. So once again, if you aren't already out there, go check out blaxploitme.com. You can be the star of your own Blaxploitation movie or book cover. All right. So I think that's what we got for this week, Cat Daddies and Foxy Mamas. We're going to go ahead and get on up out of here. So again, our movie, Bone, starring Yaphet Kotto. Our book, Black Streets of Oakland, Leo Gill, or Kelly Eagle as told to Leo Gill. And then our music, the self-titled album from Tower of Power. All right. So check those out when you get a chance. As always, I love y'all. I appreciate you. And I will see you all on the next one. Foxy Mamas and Cat Daddies. Peace.